Today morning, Raila Odinga hosted Algeria's ambassador, after which, taking to his social media accounts, he shared out a post I want us to have a look at, for it's going to inform the basis of our analysis right now. Raila Odinga: it was a pleasure hosting Ambassador of the Republic of Algeria, His Excellency Mahi Boumediene, who paid me a courtesy call this morning. Algeria and Kenya share a similar armed war for independence and Pan-African ideals. Raila continues, the discussion this morning centered on the fact that our fathers were the generation that fought colonialism and gave us the independence of our individual states. What can our generation claim to have done for the continent? We agreed on the need to leave Africa's painful past behind and move the continent forward through trade and transformative infrastructure, including transcontinental railways, trans-Africa highways, African open skies, and making River Nile navigable from the Mediterranean Sea. After which Raila Odinga has shared out those photos. And Raila Odinga is talking of our fathers who fought colonialism and gave us the independence of our individual states. So he's talking of colonialism and the independence of the individual states. This post by Raila Odinga, I see it as a thin-veiled attack on Ruto. And that is so because Ruto is being seen as a puppet for the West. Raila is just trying to remind Ruto, Mr. President, we are no longer a colony. We are an independent state. Don't depend too much on the West. I want us to dig deep into this for Kenyans to understand it better. If you are watching us, but you have not yet subscribed, subscribe in order not to miss our next analysis. Let's proceed. If you look at William Ruto's rule, Ruto has been in power for about 2 years now. In the 2 years he has been in power, he has proved beyond any reasonable doubt that he is very desperate to please the Western superpowers at the expense of his own people. Almost all the decisions, policies of Kenya Kwanza government, there is a hand from the West pushing such policies. Immediately William Ruto came to power, he removed subsidies on fuel and some other basic commodities. We are told that it was the West that piled pressure on him to do so. If you look at the taxes, again it's the West. So Ruto seems to be very desperate to please the West. He's more loyal to the West than to Kenyans. And that can beg the question, who voted for Ruto? Who made him the president? Is it the West or Kenyans? If Kenyans made Ruto the president, he could be listening to Kenyans more than he is listening to the West. But it appears he's listening to the West more than to Kenyans. And that can just reinforce the notion that is actually the West that made him the president. As I talk, President of Burkina Faso turns down IMF financial assistance. This is a progressive leader, and African leaders should start emulating such leaders. The more you borrow from the West, the more you become slaves to the West. Ruto has got a very high appetite to borrow. If he gets an opportunity to borrow, he gladly borrows. And actually, it's Ruto who is begging the West to lend him some money. But you're now seeing the West are begging some African leaders so that they can accept money. But in the case of Ruto, Ruto is the person begging the West. That shows serious desperation by Ruto. And as time goes by, he will be seen as a joker, somebody very desperate. The West will dump him because, after all, he's too desperate. He's readily available. He is eager and willing to play to the whims of the West. They will use him and eventually they will dump him. That's one thing William Ruto should know. The more you paint yourself as being very desperate, nobody will take you seriously. Back in Africa, it's clear that some African leaders have started seeing William Ruto's weaknesses. He's too desperate to please the West. Our neighbors in Tanzania, Uganda, they have been calling William Ruto to order. And we still remember, sometimes back, Tanzania's president, Samia Suluhu, warning William Ruto not to over-rely on the West. So you are seeing that even among his African colleagues, they have started having a low opinion of him. And that can also put Kenya in a very awkward position where we will be seen as the US or the West's puppet. And that can augur very negatively for Kenya globally. So to the president, let him think outside the box. Over relying on the West will just make Kenya poor. We should live within our means. It's clear Kenya Kwanza government is not living within its means. It's borrowing to sustain its lifestyle. And that will eventually backfire. So this post by Raila Odinga, I'm seeing it as a thin-veiled attack on Ruto. He's indirectly trying to tell William Ruto, Mr. President, don't depend too much on the West. We are nobody's colony. We are an independent state. Let us stand on our feet, not massaging the West. That's what I'm seeing here. And again, we know that Raila Odinga is in the race for the AUC chair. Meeting Algeria's ambassador, I'm also seeing that as a way Raila Odinga is trying to reach out to the Muslim countries in Africa. Because with the Somalia's candidate and Djibouti's candidate in the race, there have been some rumors that the Muslim votes in Africa might go to these two candidates. If Raila Odinga can also eat a chunk from that Muslim vote, then it's very clear nobody will stop him from clinching that post. I think this is also a strategy Raila is trying to use to campaign. And is just trying to tell Africa that he's even ready to work with other Muslim countries to achieve the greater good of Africa. That's what I'm seeing from here. Let me stop it there. If you are watching us but you have not yet subscribed, subscribe, give the video a like. To those watching us outside Kenya, drop a comment. Let us know from which part of the globe you are watching us from. If possible, subscribe, give the video a like. My hope is that William Ruto can get the message and take the message positively. Thank you. God bless you.